They came expecting sheep. They found wolves. The hegemony had conquered 47 star systems without breaking a sweat. Their war machines had crushed civilizations that had stood for millennia. Their diplomatic corps had never needed to negotiate, only dictate terms of surrender. But humanity? Humanity was different. When the sleek obsidian ships of the Zephyrian hegemony first darkened Earth's skies, the aliens aboard were already composing victory reports. Their scouts had observed a primitive species barely past nuclear age, squabbling over resources on a single mudball planet. Easy prey. They didn't understand that humans had been preparing for this moment since the first caveman looked up at the stars and wondered what lived among them. They didn't know that every human conflict, every bloody war, every tactical innovation had been inadvertent training for the day when survival meant facing an enemy from beyond the stars. The hegemony's ultimatum was simple: submit or be exterminated. Humanity's response was simpler: come and take it. What followed would reshape the galaxy forever. Because when you demand war from a species that has spent 10,000 years perfecting it, you might just get more than you bargained for. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the International Space Station, watching the alien fleet arrange itself in Earth's orbit like chess pieces on a cosmic board. 27 ships, each the size of a small city, their obsidian hulls drinking in starlight and reflecting nothing back. "They're beautiful," whispered Dr. James Reeves, the xenobiologist who'd been hastily shuttled up from Geneva. His breath fogged the reinforced glass as he pressed closer to the window. "So are sharks," Chen replied, not taking her eyes off the formation. She'd spent 30 years in various Earth navies before the formation of the Unified Defense Command. She knew predator behavior when she saw it. The lead ship had been broadcasting the same message in 17 Earth languages for 6 hours now. The translation was crude but the meaning crystal clear: submit to hegemony rule or face annihilation. Surrender your weapons, your governments, your freedom. Become cattle in their cosmic empire. Chen's comm unit crackled. "Admiral, we're receiving a direct transmission request from the lead vessel." "Put it through to the main display." The holographic projector shimmered to life, revealing a creature that made Chen's tactical mind immediately catalog weaknesses. 7 feet tall, with blue-gray skin stretched over an elongated frame. Forearms ending in delicate, almost artistic fingers. Large black eyes that seemed to weigh and dismiss everything they saw. "I am War Master Thylex of the Zephyrian hegemony," the being spoke, its voice carrying harmonics that made the humans present feel slightly nauseous. "You have been designated for integration into our empire. Your response time has exceeded acceptable parameters." Chen stepped forward. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Unified Defense Command. We received your message. Our answer is no." Those black eyes blinked slowly, a gesture somehow more alien than anything else about the creature. "You misunderstand. This was not a negotiation. Your species lacks the technological capacity to resist. We have conquered worlds with far greater military capability than your own." "Have you now?" Chen's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Tell me, War Master, in all those conquests, did any of those worlds have nuclear weapons? Primitive fusion devices are irrelevant against our shielding technology." "What about biological weapons? Chemical weapons? Did any of those civilized species you conquered spend centuries perfecting ways to kill their own kind?" Thylex's head tilted with what might have been curiosity or contempt. "Your reputation for self-destruction has reached even our territory. It is seen as evidence of your primitive nature." Chen laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. "Primitive? Maybe. But, you know what we learned from all that self-destruction? We learned that the only way to stop a killer is to become a better one." Behind her, the emergency session of the World Council was reaching its conclusion. Every major leader on Earth had spent the last 6 hours in frantic discussion. Not about whether to fight, that decision had been unanimous within the first hour. But about how to make the aliens regret ever pointing their ships at humanity's home. "Your defiance is noted," Thylex continued, seemingly unperturbed. "We will begin atmospheric bombardment in one of your planetary rotations. Perhaps watching your cities burn will convince you to reconsider. Warmaster, Chen said, her voice dropping to conversational tones, do you know why we built these space stations? It wasn't just for research. We built them because we knew someday we might need to coordinate a defense against something from out there. She gestured toward the endless black of space. Every human child grows up on stories about alien invasion. We've been imagining this fight since before we had the technology to reach orbit. Stories will not protect you. No, but 30,000 nuclear warheads will make things interesting. For the first time, the aliens' composure seemed to crack. Nuclear weapons deployed against our fleet would irradiate your own orbital infrastructure. You would be destroying your own strategic capabilities. That assumes we're planning to use them conventionally. Chen's smile widened. Tell me, when was the last time your hegemony faced an enemy that was willing to pack nuclear devices into unmanned shuttles and ram them directly into your ships? The silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds. When Thylex spoke again, there was something different in its voice. You would sacrifice your own vessels? We're human. We've been sacrificing ourselves for causes we believe in since we learned to walk upright. The question isn't whether we're willing to die fighting you. The question is whether you're prepared for the casualties we're willing to accept to make sure you regret coming here. Dr. Reeves had gone pale during this exchange. Admiral, surely there's a diplomatic solution, Chen cut him off with a gesture. Doctor, with respect, diplomacy is what happens between equals. These beings see us as livestock. You don't negotiate with livestock. Your species' predilection for violence is well documented, Thylex said. It is precisely why you require guidance from a more evolved civilization. Evolved? Chen's laugh was genuine this time. Let me ask you something, Warmaster. Your technology is obviously superior to ours. Your ships are marvels of engineering. Your weapons could probably sterilize our planet from orbit. But, tell me, how many of your crew members are willing to die for their cause? Die? Our casualties in previous campaigns have been minimal. Our technology, that's not what I asked. I asked how many of your people are willing to die. Because I can tell you exactly how many humans are willing to die to defend Earth. All of them. The alien's image flickered slightly, whether from transmission interference or something else, Chen couldn't tell. You see, that's the thing about apex predators, she continued. We don't just evolve better weapons. We evolve better reasons to use them. Every human who dies today will be remembered. Their sacrifice will inspire others. Their families will carry on the fight. You're not just declaring war on humanity, you're declaring war on humanity's children, and their children, and every generation that comes after. Your resistance is futile. Your projections don't account for the fact that humans have been studying warfare since before we had written language. We've fought each other with sticks and stones, bronze and iron, gunpowder and atomic fire. We've perfected siege warfare, guerrilla tactics, asymmetric conflict, and total war. We've learned to fight in every environment our planet can produce, and a few we've artificially created. Chen gestured to the tactical display behind her, where Earth's defense grid was coming online. Missile platforms, orbital weapons, converted satellites, all of it crude compared to alien technology, but all of it designed by minds that had spent millennia learning to kill efficiently. But here's what really should worry you, she said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. We've never, in our entire history, faced an existential threat and not found a way to survive it. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, plagues that killed half our population were still here. And, you know why? Thylex remains silent. Because we don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies never threaten anyone again. So when you start your bombardment tomorrow, remember this conversation. Because you're not just attacking Earth. You're creating an enemy that will spend the next 1,000 years learning everything there is to know about your technology, your worlds, and your weaknesses. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the observation deck in silence except for the hum of life support systems. Dr. Reeves was staring at Chen with something approaching horror. Admiral, did you just threaten to pursue a 1,000-year war? Chen turned away from the window, her expression grim. Doctor, I just informed them that humanity doesn't surrender. Whether they want to learn that the easy way or the hard way is up to them. As if summoned by her words, her comm unit chimed with an incoming message from Earth. The World Council had finished their deliberations. Every nuclear power had committed their arsenals to the defense. Every military force on the planet was mobilizing. Every space-capable nation was preparing to throw everything they had into orbit. But, more importantly, every major university, research institution, and tech company had been tasked with one simple mission: study the alien technology and find ways to improve upon it. Humanity was going to war, but they were also going to school. Chen looked out at the alien fleet one more time. Tomorrow, those ships would attack. Many humans would die. Cities might burn. The cost would be horrific. But the Zephyrian hegemony had made one critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that humanity would fight like every other species they had conquered, desperately, defensively, hoping for survival. They had no idea that humans had learned long ago that sometimes the best defense is making your enemy regret starting the fight in the first place. The war they had demanded was about to begin. But regime change? That was going to be their problem to deal with. The first alien plasma bolt struck the Pacific Ocean at 3:47 GMT, vaporizing 17 billion gallons of seawater and sending a steam cloud into the atmosphere that could be seen from orbit. The message was clear: surrender or watch your world burn one piece at a time. Humanity's response came exactly 97 seconds later. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the controls of the converted asteroid mining vessel Prometheus as it accelerated toward the hegemony flagship. In the cargo hold behind her, 43 nuclear warheads, each one powerful enough to level a city, were configured into the largest improvised explosive device in human history. Prometheus, this is ground control. You are authorized for final approach. Godspeed. Elena had volunteered for this mission along with 6,000 other pilots. They'd drawn straws. She'd won. Or lost, depending on perspective. Copy that, ground control. Tell my daughter I love her. Through her viewport, the alien flagship grew larger. Its shields flickered with energy patterns that human sensors barely understood. Those shields had deflected conventional missile strikes without effort. But no one had tried ramming a nuclear-powered mining vessel into them at 12 kilometers per second. The hegemony had made their second critical error: they'd assumed human tactics would remain conventional. Prometheus, you have incoming fighters. 3 needle-shaped alien interceptors were closing fast, their weapons charging with lethal intent. Elena smiled. The aliens still didn't understand what they were dealing with. Prometheus to all units. Light 'em up. From 17 different vectors, human pilots emerged from hiding spots throughout the solar system. Not in warships, humanity didn't have warships that could challenge alien technology. Instead, they flew converted civilian vessels, mining ships, research probes, and century-old nuclear submarines retrofitted with chemical rockets. Every single one was on a collision course. This was the kamikaze protocol, named after pilots from humanity's bloodiest war. When facing superior technology, you made your enemy pay in blood for every victory. You made them understand that destroying humanity meant sacrificing their own forces in return. The alien fighters diverted to engage the incoming swarm. Energy beams lanced through space, vaporizing human ships with casual efficiency. But, for every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. And the humans weren't trying to win a dogfight, they were trying to buy Elena 90 more seconds. They bought her 93. The Prometheus struck the flagship's shields at 0.04 c relative velocity. The nuclear payload detonated simultaneously with impact, creating a fusion reaction visible from Mars. The alien shields held for roughly 3 microseconds before catastrophic cascade failure. Elena Vasquez died before she could see the massive hegemony ship break apart, its hull cracking like an egg under forces it was never designed to withstand. But, on Earth, 40 billion people watched the flagship's destruction on every screen, tablet, and communication device on the planet. The cheering could probably be heard from orbit. War Master Thylex, now commanding the fleet from a secondary vessel, stared at the tactical display with something approaching disbelief. Report. The humans employed kinetic impact combined with nuclear detonation. Our shielding protocols were not designed to handle that velocity combined with that yield. Explain how primitive spacecraft achieved such velocities. Analysis suggests they gutted their asteroid mining vessels and replaced cargo capacity with propulsion systems. The vessels had no life support, no defensive systems, no provisions for crew survival. They were simply manned missiles. Thylex's forearms trembled slightly. In 17 previous conquests, the hegemony had never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice their own ships as weapons. Losses? Flagship destroyed. 1,200 crew lost. Additionally, we've detected 43 more vessels approaching on similar trajectories. Destroy them. Sir, engaging all incoming targets will require deploying our entire fighter screen. This leaves the capital ships vulnerable to. There are no more human vessels in range. Actually, sir, there are. The tactical display updated to show new contacts. Hundreds of them. They were emerging from behind Earth's moon, from asteroid belts, from orbital positions that had appeared empty moments before. Each one broadcasting human identification signals. Each one on a collision course. Impossible. Our sensors detected no such fleet. Analysis suggests the humans concealed ships throughout their system over the past 24 hours. They appear to have converted every space-capable vessel in their inventory to serve as kinetic weapons. This was humanity's third lesson for the hegemony: when you threaten someone's homeworld, they don't fight with what they have. They fight with everything they can possibly convert into a weapon. Dr. Marcus Webb was aboard one of those converted vessels, the former luxury cruise liner Stellar Princess. The ship's restaurants and theaters had been replaced with rocket fuel and nuclear warheads. The swimming pools were now missile bays. He wasn't a soldier. 3 days ago, he'd been a university professor studying theoretical physics. But, when the call had gone out for volunteers to help crew the converted civilian fleet, he'd stepped forward along with millions of others. Professor Webb to all stations. Remember, we're not trying to outfight them. We're trying to make this so expensive that they decide Earth isn't worth the cost. Throughout the converted cruise ship, civilians turned warriors checked their weapons. Housewives who'd learned to operate missile guidance systems. Accountants who'd mastered nuclear device arming procedures. Artists who'd become experts at trajectory calculation. The alien fleet was spreading out, trying to minimize the effectiveness of the human swarm tactics. Their weapons were superior, their ships were faster, their technology was centuries ahead of anything humanity possessed. But, they were fighting for conquest. Humans were fighting for survival. Incoming transmission from the alien fleet, reported Sarah Martinez, formerly a dental hygienist, now the ship's communications officer. Thylex's image appeared on the main screen, and, even through the translation software, his anger was palpable. Humans! Your resistance is causing unnecessary casualties on both sides. Surrender now and your deaths will be swift. Webb stepped forward. War Master, this is Professor Marcus Webb, formerly of Cambridge University. I have a doctorate in theoretical physics and spent my career studying the mathematics of impossible things. Your academic credentials are irrelevant. I disagree. Because I want to help you understand the mathematics of what you're facing. Webb gestured to a display showing the tactical situation. Your fleet consists of 26 remaining vessels. Our converted civilian fleet numbers approximately 400 ships. Numbers are irrelevant when technology is superior. Normally, yes. But, here's the thing about humans, we don't accept normal. Let me show you what we've calculated. The display changed to show projected casualty ratios. Based on current engagement patterns, we estimate you'll destroy roughly 15 human vessels for every hegemony ship you lose. Those ratios favor us significantly. Do they? Because here's what you haven't calculated. Every human ship you destroy is crewed by volunteers. People who chose to be here. People whose families are watching this battle on television right now, learning exactly how your weapons work, how your ships move, how your tactics function. Webb's expression grew cold. More importantly, every ship we lose teaches us something new about your technology. And, we're very, very fast learners. As if to prove his point, 3 human ships approached an alien cruiser from different angles. The first 2 were destroyed by energy weapons, but their crews had broadcast detailed sensor readings of the alien defensive systems. The third ship adjusted its approach based on that data, slipped through a gap in the cruiser's defenses, and detonated its nuclear payload against the hull. You see, War Master, you're fighting a learning enemy. Every exchange makes us a little bit better. Every casualty teaches us how to hurt you more efficiently. Thylex's image flickered. Your casualties are unsustainable. Are they? Because we've done the math on that too. Earth has a population of 8 billion humans. If every person on this planet dedicated their life to fighting your hegemony, how long do you think it would take us to exhaust your military resources across your entire empire? The silence stretched long enough that Webb wondered if the transmission had been cut. You're threatening to sacrifice your entire species. No, War Master. We're explaining that we're willing to sacrifice our entire species. There's a difference. Threats are about intimidation. This is about mathematics. Another hegemony ship died as human vessels swarmed it, their crews broadcasting technical data even as their ships were torn apart by alien weapons. Each death bought knowledge. Each sacrifice revealed another weakness. Your people die for nothing. They die for everything. Every human who dies today ensures that our children will have better weapons, better tactics, better knowledge of how to fight your kind. You're not just killing soldiers, War Master. You're creating curriculum. Webb turned to his crew. All stations, prepare for attack run. Throughout the bridge, ordinary civilians prepared to die fighting creatures from the stars. A kindergarten teacher armed nuclear weapons. A retired plumber calculated missile trajectories. A professional chef coordinated point defense systems. War Master, Webb said, his voice calm despite the approaching alien fighters, you came here expecting to conquer livestock. Instead, you've discovered that you're fighting the universe's most dangerous species, a smart prey animal that refused to stay prey. The transmission cut as energy beams began tearing through the stellar princess's hull. But, Webb had time for one last message to Earth, package delivered. Data stream complete. Use what we've learned. The cruise ship died in nuclear fire, taking an alien destroyer with it. But, 40 billion humans had just watched the entire engagement. And, they were taking very detailed notes. The Zephyrian hegemony had demanded war. They were getting an education. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, War Master Thylex stood in the ruins of his empire's greatest military academy, watching human engineers dissect hegemony technology with the focused intensity of surgeons. The irony was not lost on him that the species he'd come to conquer was now teaching his people how their own weapons worked. The humans have upgraded our particle beam efficiency by 37%, reported Sub-Commander Vex, one of the few hegemony officers who'd survived the rebellion that had followed humanity's educational campaign. Thylex clicked his mandibles in what passed for bitter laughter among his kind. Of course they have. The transformation had been swift and absolute. Within 3 months of the first battle, human reverse-engineered technology had reached 17 of the hegemony's core worlds. Not as weapons, at least, not initially. As gifts. It had started with medical technology. Dr. Sarah Kim, a trauma surgeon from Seoul who'd survived the attack on Earth, had used captured hegemony bioscanners to develop treatments that could cure diseases the aliens had suffered with for centuries. She'd then broadcast the medical procedures on all frequencies, teaching alien doctors to save lives the hegemony's own medical establishment had written off as incurable. Hard to maintain authority over populations when another species is healing your people better than you can. Sir, Vex continued, the humans are requesting permission to upgrade our planetary defense grid. To what end? Protection against the Korthak Syndicate. Intelligence suggests they're planning an invasion of the Outer Rim territories. This was humanity's masterstroke. They hadn't just defeated the hegemony militarily, they'd made themselves indispensable. When faced with external threats, former hegemony worlds found themselves turning to human technology and human tactical expertise for protection. Because humans didn't just study war. They studied peace. And they'd learned that the best way to ensure peace was to make your former enemies dependent on your protection. Admiral Chen materialized as a hologram beside Thylex, transmitted from the human command ship in orbit. In 6 months, she'd gone from defending a single planet to coordinating the defense of 47 star systems. War Master, we need to discuss the Korthak situation. What is there to discuss? They have 600 ships. Our combined fleet number's barely 400. Quantity isn't everything. The question is, are you willing to fight beside us? Thylex's forearms gestured helplessly. Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. That's the point. Chen's image stepped closer. We learned something about you during the war, Thylex. You're not evil. You're not monsters. You're just limited. Limited? Your entire civilization developed along a single path. Technological superiority leading to peaceful expansion. You never had to innovate ways to fight peers. You never had to develop tactics against desperate enemies. You never learned how to fight for survival. Chen's expression softened slightly. That's not your fault. But it made you vulnerable to species like the Korthaks. They're raiders, pirates, the kind of civilization that develops when conquest becomes a way of life. And you believe you can defeat them? I believe we can teach you to defeat them. This was the conversation that would reshape galactic civilization. Not a conquest. Not a surrender. An education. 3 weeks later, the Korthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian system, expecting to find the usual hegemony weakness: advanced technology operated by beings who'd never learned to fight for their lives. Instead, they found Admiral Sarah Chen's masterpiece. The human hegemony joint fleet was arranged in a formation that violated every principle of traditional space warfare. Ships were clustered in seemingly random groups, overlapping fields of fire, mixing human and alien technologies in ways that made no tactical sense to conventional military doctrine. Fleet Commander Gorvok of the Korthak Syndicate studied the formation with predatory interest. They appear to be amateurs. This will be easier than expected. He had no way of knowing that every ship in that formation was crewed by beings who'd spent the last 6 months learning human military doctrine. Beings who'd absorbed 10,000 years of human tactical innovation in a crash course that had cost the hegemony 3 months of economic productivity and every assumption they'd ever held about the nature of warfare. All ships, begin attack. Target the largest vessels first. The Korthak fleet advanced in traditional formation, heavily armored ships in front, fast attack craft on the flanks, command vessels safely in the rear. It was a formation that had served them well against 17 previous civilizations. It lasted exactly 4 minutes against human-trained tacticians. The opening move came from former hegemony cargo ships that had been converted into missile platforms. They launched swarms of guided projectiles that appeared to miss their targets by enormous margins until those missiles activated proximity charges that created debris clouds throughout the Korthak formation. While the raiders were dealing with debris impacts, converted civilian vessels operated by hegemony crews trained in human swarming tactics emerged from behind asteroids and began ramming runs on the larger Korthak ships. But the real lesson came when the Korthak command vessel, frustrated by these primitive tactics, fired its main weapon at what appeared to be a helpless human cruiser. The cruiser absorbed the energy beam with newly installed hegemony shielding technology, converted the energy using human-designed capacitors, and fired it back with 30% additional power. The Korthak flagship didn't survive the experience. Impossible, Gorvok breathed as his tactical display dissolved into chaos. How are they? His question was answered by Admiral Chen's voice, broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Hegemony Alliance. Commander Gorvok, you're facing the combined tactical knowledge of 2 species. one that spent millennia perfecting the technology of war, and one that spent millennia perfecting the art of war. I suggest you withdraw while you still can. We outnumber you 2-1. Yes, but you're fighting like you always fight. We're fighting like humans taught us to fight. To prove her point, 3 Korthak heavy cruisers found themselves surrounded by a dozen smaller vessels that appeared from seemingly empty space. Cloaking technology courtesy of the hegemony, applied with human tactical doctrine that emphasized surprise and overwhelming force concentration. The cruisers died in the crossfire. You see, Commander, the thing about humans is that they don't just learn from victory. They learn from defeat. And your species has been defeating others for so long that you never learned how to adapt when someone adapts to you. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 2/3 of the Korthak fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remainder fled into hyperspace, broadcasting warnings throughout the sector about the human plague that had infected the hegemony. Those warnings reached 47 different species across the galaxy. And 39 of them immediately sent diplomatic missions to Earth, requesting military advisors. Thylex found Admiral Chen in the observation deck of the Joint Command ship, watching human and hegemony crews work side by side in the hangars below. 6 months ago, they'd been trying to kill each other. Now they were planning joint exercises against theoretical threats. You knew this would happen, he said. What? The Korthak attack? All of it. You knew that defeating us militarily wouldn't be enough. You knew that you needed to make us choose to ally with you. Chen smiled. We learned a long time ago that conquered peoples make terrible allies. But people who choose to fight beside you? They'll follow you into hell. And now? Now we have a galaxy-spanning alliance built on mutual benefit instead of conquest. Your technology, our tactics. Your resources, our innovation. Your peaceful nature, our protective instincts. She gestured to the tactical display showing the current disposition of Alliance forces. 17 more species have requested admission to the Alliance. 3 more have asked for military advisors. The Korthaks are in full retreat. And, for the first time in galactic history, we have an interstellar civilization built on voluntary cooperation instead of domination. Thylex studied the display. The Alliance now controlled or protected 64 star systems, with more joining every week. But, they weren't being conquered, they were choosing to join an organization that offered protection, technological advancement, and military education. We came to your world expecting to add another subjugated species to our empire. Instead, you discovered that sometimes the conquered become the teachers. A communications alert chimed. Another species requesting Alliance membership. Another civilization that had heard about the defeat of both the hegemony and the Korthaks, and decided they wanted to learn from the humans who had turned warfare into education and conquest into cooperation. Admiral, Thylex said, what happens when we encounter a species that doesn't want to learn? That chooses conflict over cooperation? Shen's smile turned sharp. Then, we teach them why that's a bad choice. Together. The irony was perfect. The Zephyrian hegemony had demanded war from humanity, expecting to add another conquered world to their empire. Instead, they had created the first truly voluntary interstellar alliance in galactic history. Regime change, indeed. But, it wasn't Earth's government that had been overthrown. It was the entire concept of conquest-based civilization. In its place rose something new, an alliance where the strong protected the weak, where technology was shared rather than hoarded, and, where the price of membership wasn't surrender, it was the willingness to stand together against those who would threaten any member world. The humans had taken the hegemony's demand for war and transformed it into the foundation of a new galactic order. One where the species that had perfected the art of warfare used their knowledge not to conquer, but to ensure that no one else ever had to face conquest alone. War had indeed been their demand. And regime change had been the result. But the regime that changed hadn't been humanity's. It had been everyone else's.